The following episode contains or may contain spoilers. So if you're spoiler sensitive, maybe beware.
Yeah, you sensitive people.
Get out.
Oh, get in. Welcome to the Fantom Zone. 3 fans, 1 podcast, and a sea of comics. I'm Noah.
Kayla.
Jared.
Too much of a break. It has to be like half a second in between each introduction.
You're being really obnoxiously picky right now about how we say our names.
Because we had it perfect. I'm kidding, guys.
I didn't know that was like a band teacher now.
Yeah, right.
That's 2 rests. Clear.
You were half a measure early.
I wasn't banned for like 10 years. But
I
anyway.
was in choir. I understand.
This note that Noah gave me, he said it was sheet music. It just says, fuck you.
Just with like unlimited note. So today, with End Game coming up, we usually deep dive a character that a movie's coming out, and we weren't going to do the entire cast of Avengers because that's ridiculous.
I mean, I would look forward to recording a 70-hour episode, but people might not want to listen.
Avengers, that's got nearly 7 characters in it. How could we begin?
Nearly 7.
Yeah, and that just seems like a huge undertaking, and I'm sure they're going to have sequels later, so we thought we would kind of deep dive the Mad Titan and his gems.
Yep.
Yummy.
Jared like it.
Yummy.
So as always, I'll kind of just go over the basic character, kind of just talk about him a little bit.
Tell us about Thanos, Noah.
So you say Thanos.
Yes.
I say Thanos.
Thanos.
Okay.
And,
I think it's interesting.
Caleb
How
pronounces it Dr. Doom.
I think I go back and forth, kind of like caramel and caramel. It doesn't matter to me.
How did I say it?
Thanos?
I can't remember.
Thanos?
How did you? I don't know.
I think
how
I say Thanos.
Yeah, Thanos. Thanos.
Thanos.
You say Thanos?
Enough with the judgment towards this direction.
I think some people say Thanos. But okay, it's fine.
So anyway, so the Mad Titan, he is from Titan, the moon of Saturn. That's where his people were from. I guess Earth didn't discover it until he decided to wreak havoc. But to go into his profile, because I found his, I don't know if he was like on a Tinder profile. Like, so he's 6'7". Doesn't seem that tall for somebody that's 985 pounds.
Well, he's very wide.
He's densely packed like a neutron star.
Yeah. He's
very dense.
Yeah.
It's very dense. His aliases that he's gone by is Mad Titan, Master, Thanos Rex, which I think is hilarious.
Thanosaurus.
Just means king, right? I think.
Thanosaurus Rex.
Yeah. It means king. Thanos means king and Rex means dog. So king dog. Thank you. You guys know.
Master, Lord, and then Overmaster.
Yep.
I feel like those need to be mixed back around. So I don't know.
Also, it's just people saying that so he doesn't kill him.
Yeah.
Like they're just like
Master, Lord, Overmaster.
Yeah.
Don't kill
That's
me.
a good name. That's my name now.
Yeah, so his powers are, typical supervillain, super strength, superhuman durability, magic, mysticism, black arts, which is confusing to me. We had this discussion before the podcast because I've always heard black magic or dark arts, but black arts just yeah. And then immortality. So that's the basis of his powers. And he does have some psychic abilities, doesn't he?
Yeah, a little bit. It's usually more defensive. Like his mind kind of can't be.
It's
affected.
like it's shielded.
So he has like Magneto's helmet on.
Inside of his skull. His head looks so weird.
Thanks, Gamora. I'm sure she helped him with that.
Yeah, and also just to comment, like he doesn't do spells. If the listener's unfamiliar, he used the dark arts to kind of increase his own power or whatever. But he doesn't he won't turn you into like a monkey or whatever.
I wish he would. That'd be cool.
Yeah.
So yeah, he's probably one of the most evil and bloodthirsty villains of the Marvel universe. He is heavily influenced by a lot of other characters in comics, but he's the big threat. I mean, every time he comes around, always a big threat. His main goal is always to find the Infinity Stones, gems,
or some
rocks.
other MacGuffin of some sort.
Yeah, it's like the Wabbajack in Skyrim. Like,
yes.
You want that one to do anything.
Let's hope he doesn't get his purple mitts on that thing.
Yeah. And he's always caused threats for the universe. He's the big bad, the big event-ending character. And that's all I have to say.
He's scary.
Yeah.
What do you guys? I mean, what did you think about him being picked for the big villain? Like that all the movies were going to culminate. Yeah, because even into Phase 1, at the end of Avengers, we all get to know it's going to be Thanos or Thanos. We don't know what it's going to be.
I mean, yeah, I think if we didn't get the lead up that we did with the gems or stones, whatever the fuck you want to call it, throughout the movies, I think it would have been a weird choice if he just kind of came in and it wasn't leading up to it.
Yeah, if he just swept in out of nowhere.
But I mean, I'm pretty fine with it. Yeah. I think it's a good ending to this giant chapter of what they did.
I 100% agree. The way the MCU built up Thanos is kind of my favorite way of how they should do crossovers. And it's kind of annoying because you have to, I guess it's more scattered. You have to follow all of the movies to get the little hints towards the big bad, and then towards the end, like his presence starts, But no, I think it was a good choice.
I definitely think it's a step up from a lot of the villains they've had.
Oh, yeah.
There's a lot of like, okay, I get like this is just to like further the plot or whatever, or they're just not as big as he is,
and some of that's execution. Like they've made some missteps, like with the Malekith debacle, where it's like great character but not executed all that well in that movie. In this case, I was pretty confident Thanos was going to work. He felt like, because to me, even within the comics, he's this perfect combo. He's this like cross between being intimidatingly powerful and scary and intelligent, all this kind of stuff, but also being very human and believable.
Yeah.
I think this is a rule in comics generally, but especially in the Marvel universe, you start getting more powerful than Thanos, you really get into like the forces of nature category, and they can be an awful obstacle for the heroes, but it's hard for them to be like a good villain. You know what I mean? They don't really wax philosophical about why they're doing stuff or laugh maniacally when they're just like a representation of universal consonants or whatever.
Yeah, I mean...
Shout out to Galactus.
I like how you brought up the Malekith debacle, because, I mean, Malekith on his own is a huge threat, and he's a worthy villain, but... Absolutely. It's just the execution.
Well, I don't know if this is the place to say this, but I kind of wish they would have stayed more true to comic Thanos.
This is the perfect place to say that.
Yeah, I mean, again, I think Thanos was a really good choice. I just think that they tried a little too hard, and I've ranted on this exact issue in past episodes, so I'll keep it brief. I just think that, his whole thing with death.
Yeah, I think his motivations and what drove him to be the Mad Titan, or his quest after that, I think is much better in comics. I'm not too sure why they didn't do it in the movies.
Well, I think it's a disservice to his character, because Jared was mentioning before we started recording that he's a super intelligent person. Yeah. And so with all of the comic book motivations and all of that, you see that. I feel like in the movie, it's kind of just... it dumbs him down a little.
Yeah, even with the gauntlet.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. My position on that is generally about why he's so intimidating. Weirdly enough, is less about the physical power that he's carrying around, and it's with his genius level intellect. As a matter of fact, most of the stuff that he does in the comics, I mean, he has these like confrontational moments where he beats the crap out of like the top tier characters and stuff like that. But it's usually the architecture of his plan that's really scary.
It's like, what? You just outsmarted Reed Richards?
Yeah, like how he overcomes certain obstacles without even punching anything.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So he's scared, and I think so with the MCU. There's reasons they changed the character. We should probably go into it a little bit. If you don't have a sense of this yet, Thanos is a worshiper of death.
Yes.
Not just the concept, though, that too, but also the Marvel Comics abstract avatar of the notion of death, Lady Death. So the personification.
The humanoid version of death.
So he's ultimately and completely devoted and in love with her. And that's something they took out of the movies. And they focused more on the idea that he just wanted something like balance.
He wanted to balance it. He thought people and overpopulation was a disease.
Yeah.
And the thing about, I agree somewhat in that it happened to his planet and he can see that it's going to happen to other things. So in a weird way, they try to make him this like anti-villain type thing where he's like, I'll save everybody or save the universe by killing half
Bad
of the
things
people.
for the right reasons.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, I get what you're doing,
Yeah.
but also it doesn't seem like it's that big of a motivation. Like,
Agreed.
it wouldn't motivate me.
Well, and it's such
to
an
do
intelligent guy. If he's in possession of all of these gems that can alter reality, it's like you couldn't think of anything other than
Just
murder.
make more resources.
Yeah.
You're losing a lot. Like what they did learn, which was good, was that okay, we can't just make him this cosmic overlord.
Yeah.
We need to give him a kind of rich motivation.
Mm-hmm.
So and in a sense, what he the way he's motivated in the movies is more motivated than many, at least movie villains.
Mm-hmm.
So I have to give them that. But like that, they take the love aspect out of it,
Yeah.
that he's in love with her, and that also love is a form of madness.
Yep.
Yeah.
So the Mad Titan, it's connected in that way.
Well, and
So it's-
specifically being in love with death and having murder be part of the
Yeah.
solution makes
Yeah.
sense.
Yes.
But
Yeah, and it really does play into him because even though he is intelligent and, you know, intimidating and stuff, he's also kind of mentally ill in a weird way to be so in love with something that's not okay to be in love with.
yeah.
Yeah.
poor guy.
Yeah, we'll definitely talk about that. But I mean, I did think it was interesting. I thought when in Thor Ragnarok, when Hela was there and she's technically like been like Lady Death or whatever, I thought that's where they were going with it.
Yeah, a lot of people did.
And she wasn't. I thought it would have been real cool. Like, you know,
The
Kate
reason-
Blanchett and Josh Brolin getting it on. Hell
Yeah. Oh, yeah. But I think the money involved, that might have been the most expensive acquisition. Having Kate Blanchett in every movie from then on would have been so cool.
Oh, yeah.
Just that if she was in the background, kind of like a negative version of what's her name, Galadriel or something like that. You know what I mean? But
It would have been cool. Like, she could have just been part of the, you know, Black Order or whatever.
we don't know what's coming.
Yeah.
Either.
Yeah.
And there's a lot. This isn't the episode for it, but there's a lot of characters that I think are gone that I imagine are probably going to come back. If she ended up appearing again in End Game, I wouldn't be surprised.
I'd be happy about it.
Me too.
That'd be cool. Yeah, I mean, we'll see how they end this and where they're going from here. Because with the movies they've announced, I'm confused on where they're going.
Yeah.
That's strange.
Yeah, because it's like Black Widow and it just there's a lot of different moving parts.
Can we just say real quick, awesome that the trailers show you nothing. I couldn't be more excited about that.
Yeah.
They said it. Apparently, it's only the first 15 minutes.
Oh, you can tell.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, they're walking in space suits and it's a bunch of retrospect
looks so
stuff.
cool.
I know.
But sorry to bring this up right here because it is part of Thanos technically. So Captain Marvel, Thor, and I can't remember who else wasn't walking with him, but they weren't walking with him. So I'm like, oh, are they like on a mission together somewhere? Like that'd be
Probably.
real cool.
Wait, or who on a mission together?
Thor, Captain Marvel.
and Thor, because they weren't
looks
walking
like
with
it.
them. So
It
I'm
looks
like,
like it.
what if they make a relationship with them together?
By the way, that we're gonna have to move on. I know because I just have so many.
I knew
things
that'd
about
be a
that
trigger
trailer.
word for you.
It's so good, but yeah, it's wonderful. I'm very happy about what I've seen so far. I'll just say. But back to Thanos. I mean, let's get into a little bit of like kind of just where Thanos comes from, just in terms of his sort of like publication history.
Yeah. I mean, the editorial history is kind of scattered. It reminded me a lot of when I was doing research for Onslaught in terms of his appearances, especially at the beginning. So he first appeared in the Invincible Iron Man number 55 in 1973. And then he appeared in Captain Marvel, Daredevil, the Avengers. So then he just started popping up as a villain, as you know, you can kind of tell, kind of like in the movies. It wasn't until, I mean, he had a break after the 80s. He came back in 1990 in the Silver Surfer comics. He tends to stay cosmic unless it's part of like a major crossover event on Earth that affects the Earth heroes. And starting in 2010, he started having solo runs of his own. So you can pick up a book like entitled Thanos or, you know, stuff like that. And so more recent publications of Thanos have been, you know, like actually his own stories. So,
Which I'm okay with. I mean, it's kind of delving into this like character that's you can't quite figure out sometimes.
No, absolutely. I mean, there's always like an inherent depth to him or something like that. But I think where they've gone generally where he's not been the protagonist that often
Yeah.
has been good for the character.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll get it when we talk about the history in a little bit. We'll talk about the ways in which he's moved from sort of villain and
I feel
hero
like
and
they
stuff
kind of
like
like
that.
de-dark-sided him the longer he's been in publication.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
like at the beginning, he was the same.
Yeah, he's a clear like
Yeah, let's talk about that real quick. 'cause it's-
inspiration.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, at the beginning, it was like, oh, Thanos is dark side in the Marvel universe.
I don't like when people mention that, not when they mention it like it's a secret.
or like he's still that way now.
Like, well, that's a good point too. But,
Or that
but,
he's less because he's a.
But people mention it like but it's knocking on an open door. Like if
Yeah.
you ever Jim Starlin, is the guy who told people that like, I was heavily influenced by Jack Kirby.
It was never a secret, guys.
And I just like he was influenced by Jack Kirby, like all other comic
Yeah.
people, but specifically Metron and Darkseid. Those
Yeah.
are sort of the two characters he's kind of in a way homage to, let's say.
Mhm.
Well,
Yeah.
I know that when we talked on our like the types of villains that we like on our villains episode, Thanos wasn't one of my favorites. I don't tend to like Darkseid, Thanos type world-ending creatures. I like things to be a little bit more personal with the villains, but I think in terms of evolution, I like Thanos better now than Darkseid.
Sure.
I do like it. I like his journey, like the Thanos quest, and when he was the reason why he was getting
Yeah.
the stones and like his purpose. I like that part. And then obviously he's the big bad, and it's
Yeah.
like okay, the kind of goes down a bit, but I like his motivation because you
Absolutely.
don't get that a lot, especially with big villains.
Well, one, I say this a lot. That's a character arc. That's what's enjoyable about it. I think the other thing is that it's rather than compare them in terms of this is better, this is worse, or something like that, and that's valid for sure. But there's also just an idea of like how do they function better. I think with Darkseid, the more you know about him, the less good I think it gets.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah,
For sure.
exactly.
it's better if he remains this dark force of nature who just wants to come and dominate.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas with Thanos, his character, it's crucial that we know more about why he's doing it. And so much of the cool writing has been in these like philosophical meditations about death and darkness and what he is in the face of that. So yeah, I think they're both good. Thanos is obviously better. Marvel's better than DC, is it? No, I'm just, just like, no.
I was like listening, and then I was like, "What did
just
you just say?"
Just seeing how far I can get you to keep nodding.
You woke me up.
Yeah,
Thank you. No, I agree. They both serve their purpose.
Yeah.
They're both great where they're at. Darkseid definitely should not do a Thanos route of exploring more of that character. He just needs to look menacing, come
Yeah.
out, shoot his weird fucking beams, and then go away.
Yeah,
Like that-
yeah. And it's scarier that way.
Yeah. But Thanos, I think, kind of you seeing his plan unfold, and you kind of see him in the background, or his face pops up, or it's like you hear him, or the heroes hear him throughout the stories. It's like, oh, some shit's coming, and you know it's going to be like a good reason or like
Absolutely.
a big plot.
It's fair. What you said, I think, Kayla, is also very true. That if I'm honest, that's a kind of sophistication that's developed over his history. Some of the early Thanos stuff is not that more complicated than Darkseid.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
Yeah, for sure.
All right. Well, before we get into the character history
Sure.
of Thanos, we should just briefly mention why he is so freaking scary. And it's because he's part of the Eternals, which obviously is their own thing, their own team.
we might get to them one day.
Yeah.
Well, there's a movie.
I know, yeah. The
yeah.
movie's coming
Yeah,
out,
yeah,
so. But basically, so the creepy, scary thing about the Eternals is that the Celestials 5 million years ago came to Earth and found like the proto-humanity and started doing experiments on them. They created the Eternals.
The
which are, like-
Celestials being
I mean,
those gigantic Galactus level.
Yeah.
gods.
They're like they might as well be an abstract sort of deities, but they're just in a giant robot suit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the thing. But
Yeah.
anyway, yeah.
Also, that goes with the time. Like when
Yeah.
they created those things, like, yeah, of course they'd be giant robots.
yeah. We're just lucky they didn't turn into cars.
Oh, shit.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, that wouldn't have worked because they experimented on humanity. Cars can't do that. There's no
right.
opposable thumbs.
Stupid cars. You can't hold a beaker with your tire. hand.
But yeah, the Celestials, they basically created from like the very beginning of humanity, the Eternals, which are kind of like these freaking super ethereal creatures, and the Deviants, which are grotesque and ugly and hideous. We're focusing on the Eternals. And basically the scariest thing about the Eternals is that they have basically an unbreakable mental control over the physiological like components of their body.
What?
Yeah, so it's kind of like as long as they have like maintain focus, they can heal their body if they have any injury.
Crazy.
They live for millennia. They're super strong. They're immune to poison and diseases, and they're just basically really, really indestructible.
So they like will their body to be perfect.
Yes. Well, yeah.
Essentially.
For my DC fans that are exclusive to DC out there, think about the power set of the White Martians. There's some variation, but it's kind of like that, equivalent to the Superman level characters, but they, energy projection, flight, and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, basically that. Yeah. So Thanos is the son of two of the Eternals, and therefore has those capabilities, that physiology, which is, again, what makes him basically unkillable.
Yeah, I mean, he's immortal, so, I mean, that makes sense.
And his immortality is more complicated because, we'll talk about it a little bit, he's also not just in love with Lady Death, she's taking a shine to him as well. And so a lot of times she just won't let him die. Thanks a lot, Lady Death. Appreciate it.
But she'll never, go on a date with him.
No.
She's just more like, I'm going to keep you coming after this carrot on a stick, but,
what are they going to go to Arby's? Yeah. When I think of dates, I think of Arby's. Okay.
In space.
But okay, so yes, like Kayla said, Thanos is an Eternal, right? He's Eternal and Titan. So the Celestials were doing this everywhere. They're like those dads that start up like family franchises all over the country or whatever.
It's like Ego, like Kayla said earlier.
Yeah, very, very similar. Now, by the way, he's not a Celestial in the comic books, but I think it was a good move to make him that. Yeah. By the way, it just connected things a little bit better. And Ego's pretty unclassified. We don't know. He's just a planet out
Ego,
there floating
the living planet.
Yeah, exactly.
Nobody knows why.
Yeah. But yeah, so anyway, so Thanos is a Titan Eternal, and what's important about that for his origin is that it's not just superpowered beings; it's a perfect society that Thanos gets born, and he's born to this basically the king. I don't know what he's maybe the prime minister or whatever. A character named Mentor, who's kind of the architect of this perfect angelic society, but unfortunately, Thanos has the genetic deviant syndrome.
No.
Yes, it makes him
not the grotesque deviant.
Exactly. So it's really they're aggressive, they're gross, but they're often more powerful, and it's a big shame. But they keep Thanos, in the family regardless.
How sweet.
Yeah. But they also, I think they treat him well, but in probably that kind of condescending way, like, here's our ugly purple son that we totally did not throw on Mercy Reef and have him killed, like often we do.
Like they often make plans without him, but then they're oh, shit, okay, yes, I guess you can come to the movie with us.
We wanted you to go to the Avengers End Game movie, but you are purple, and that's just, it's going to be weird. I'm trying to get reelected. Okay, anyway.
What's with you and the Prime Minister? What?
I don't know. Well, that's what Mentor is his dad or whatever.
That's funny.
And so he's a kind of outcast. As he grows up, he kind of becomes worse and worse and more isolated. And unfortunately, and this is a little spoiler, he makes a friend when he's young. A little girl, the only person that's really nice to him and inspires him. And she begins to, exactly, and leads him into a darker direction, convincing him he needs to be more and more like himself, which turns out to be relatively violent.
So
murderous.
Lean into that deviant side.
Exactly.
Type thing.
And turns out she's, the little girl is none other than, spoilers, Lady Death. So, yeah, she kind of sets him up for failure. Over this, in his adult coming of age, Thanos basically becomes a serial killer.
Did she... So she obviously turned herself into a kid.
Yes.
Because she wasn't growing up whenever...
She could personify herself in whatever form.
Yeah. So why did she pick him? Is it because... Or does it explain it? I'm just curious because I've never been sure if it's because he's eternal and deviant and he's powerful and she's like, I could use that.
So they have the Eternals are a kind of link between normal sentient life forms. And the Kree and Skrull and other have that as well. They have like these sort of Eternals. They're connected to the Celestials, which like talked about before. So you can be rest assured that the abstract cosmic beings are paying attention, and Thanos just happens to be a kind of perfect.
He's a link
candidate
between multiple planes.
But it turns out Death, later on, we'll get into this, has some designs on changing the universe, and he's just a really good. It's like, I found this is going to be a perfect
instrument
murderer.
For me to use.
Yeah, exactly.
I didn't know if she was like kind of doing what Ego did and like kind of like going around and like, I could maybe this will probably help me out.
That's actually a good point because maybe she did. You know, maybe she did 4,000 of these, but Thanos is the only one that
we're reading about.
Yeah. Well, that's a good point too. He made it or whatever. But anyway, so Thanos is like a little Dexter, sort of growing up.
Oh,
and he's making these sort of plans, and he begins practicing a few things. So one, like Noah said earlier, the dark arts. He uses mystical means that we still don't really understand that well as comic readers or whatever, but to enhance his already insane deviant. So he's a mutant of the Eternals. If you think about that, like our mutants are slightly more powerful than us. It's like me, but I can shoot lasers out of my eyes or whatever. So the Eternals are like almost like Silver Surfer level characters, and he's a ultra mutant of that, and he uses magic to make himself more powerful, and then he starts using technology and bionic implants to make himself more powerful. All along, his physiology is mutated where his very atoms begin absorbing cosmic energy.
Wow.
What we get around this time is Thanos is the burgeoning form of the cosmic powerhouse he's going to be. Mm-hmm. He leaves Titan. He's almost completely shunned by the race at this point. He's killed some people.
I was going to be like,
because he's the murderer.
He was before Thanos. There had been no murders on Titan. It had been the first recorded.
Oh man,
yeah.
because it's an angelic society,
and it's the president's son. So it would be like if Donald Trump killed people, and we found Donald Trump Jr. Killed a bunch of people, and we found out about it instead of now where it's just a secret. Anyway, anyway, yes. Thanos kind of decides to get off world and become a space pirate. That is kind of, connection to Nebula, by the way. Mm-hmm. He just leaves and starts following this, like, one pirate whose name is kind of lost to time. He's probably getting some Wikipedia page or whatever. He kills that pirate.
Nice.
Takes over his sort of ship and command. And for, let's say, decades, I don't really know, but some period of time, he just conquers more and more empires and worlds and has a gigantic space armada, and then comes back and lays waste to Titan.
Whoa.
So in the comic, it's not because there's too many people, they're going to run out of grain. It's more like he just wipes everybody out. Kills his mom in that moment.
What did she do?
That is a really good question. She brought him into this world. That's Thanos' rationale. Wow. He actually, when people ask him if he's worthy of death, he mentions, "Did I not kill the very woman that brought me into this world? Is death not a part of every second of my life?" It's like, you're being real intense, dude. I get it.
Oh my God.
I got chills from that.
Yeah.
Wow.
So by now,
so Shakespearean.
Exactly. And by now, Thanos. Oh, I mean, his name is from the Greek word Thanatos, which means death. So it's right there.
I didn't know that either.
Yeah.
So he just loves death so much.
And his brother Eros.
This is Death McDecker.
Yeah. His brother Eros, who's a sort of quasi lame character, Starfucks. I think he's kind of cool, but he's made fun of a lot. His name means love because he has the ability to give people orgasms. Psychically, that's just true.
I was really hoping you would bring him up.
Yeah, look him up.
You have this guy that's obsessed with death and this all-powerful being, and then this guy that's like, I just make people feel good whenever I want them to.
It's a really great relationship because, like, Thanos is a really serious, cosmically powerful villain who's contemplative and interesting, and Eros is like this party animal, just
like
idiot.
Bro.
He's a bro. He has Birkenstock sandals in space.
Oh my God.
That's basically what's going on. Anyway, so after he lays waste to his own planet, and they do survive, by the way. It does survive Thanos, but he kills a lot of people. Mentor and Star Fox and a number of other Eternals are still alive. But anyway, the next thing we know about Thanos, the next big moment, is he goes after the Cosmic Cube. Now, he's going to be a villain in a few other sort of big crossovers. He's going to tangle with Captain Marvel, but like, suffice to say, that's his MO at this point. He's trying to find some powerful MacGuffin, take out the whole world, right? He did it with Cosmic Cube once. I think this might be, if not the introduction of the Cosmic Cube, like the first big Marvel story that it's on the radar or whatever. Then it fails, as you'd imagine. Thank you, Captain Marvel. Okay, I mean, this is boy Captain Marvel, by the way.
Yeah, figured.
Yeah. Anyway, so the next time he tries a repeat of this, we get introduced to the soul gems. what are known as the soul gems. We don't know much about them. We're going to talk about them later. But they're just very powerful, mysterious sort of things. He puts them all together and is again sort of thwarted. This time, he's frozen in stone when he loses, when all the heroes fight him and everything like that. And he'll stay in that stone in Marvel history for about 25 years. I mean, we haven't really heard much about Thanos. He's not in another published comic for 25 years. And at this point, he's kind of just I don't know, like what do you call it? Like boring, still that dark side derivative sort of character.
That is interesting that he's such a big character. They like hyped him up this much. He's all powerful, and it's like he's just in stone, and we're not going to use him for 25 years.
He got fridged.
Yeah.
Literally. I think if this next story that I'm about to mention never happened, he would be a kind of like
forgotten.
So many derivative, like Captain Chaos and whatever, the Avalanche Man or something, whatever. I mean, I don't want to crap on the stories. They really, really are good, but it's not until what is going to later on be known as the Thanos quest, that story that really, and Thanos is brought back because Lady Death decides that there's been an imbalance. So this is where the movie kind of gets it right a little bit. There's more living people now than there's ever been, and than have ever died in the universe, according to Lady Death. So she has to do something about it. She brings Thanos back and charges him with wiping out half of the living population
in the universe.
In the universe. So that's kind of cool because that wasn't just some wild hair thing in the comic that he's. Or just a silly idea he had. He's tasked with that sort of mission, but he's not powerful enough to pull it off in his estimation. When he's staring into the infinity well in Death's palace, she's got that. You can just see my well. Yeah,
infinity.
It's Property Brothers. It's everybody wants an infinity well, but like just not really because you're not gonna have that and the beach anyway. Okay, so he discovers that the soul gems that they had always known were powerful. It turns out they were actually, well, we'll get into it later, but way more powerful than he ever would have thought. He assembles those gems who had been in the property or the ownership of the Elders of the Universe, and this is the Infinity Gauntlet story. This is what everybody knows about.
This is where we're at in the movie.
Yes, and this is what puts really Thanos on the map as one of the premier Marvel villains or whatever. It's thwarted, obviously. I mean, I hate to spoil End Game. Thanos probably not going to win. Anyway.
What?
Yeah.
He's not going to join the Avengers in the end?
No, probably not. Hawkeye's sidekick. Hawkboy. Arrow Lad or something like that. But to be in line with his sort of story, ultimately, not only does it sort of not work because he's a villain, he's got to lose. He makes himself so powerful. He makes a very like God, like that with a capital G. That Death decides, well, now we can't be equals. That's all he wanted was to be loved by Death. We can't be equals because you're more powerful than me. It would be like slavery. And so much of Thanos' loss, and this is going to be a trend, or on the basis of his self-sabotage. He doesn't think he's good enough. That to get infinite power is to cut his
God damn it, I'm too strong now.
Exactly, yeah.
When you read that, were you kind of like, did you feel bad for him a little bit?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
He's Thanos, and I meant to say Kayla, and I just pointed to you and said Thanos. Kayla doesn't sympathize, and I don't doubt. He is an awful character, but I feel bad for that aspect.
Yeah, I mean, I did for sure, because he did all this shit to like impress this girl, and then she's like, nah, man, like, you're more better than me.
Absolutely. At some level, that's the psychology, and he is this master of self-sabotage, which makes him more interesting yet again. So, again, he loses, and there's some fallout, too. This is the Infinity Gauntlet. There's the Infinity War and Infinity Crusade, which are, I think, well written and well executed, but they're pretty much just sequels of this activity, right?
Like filler.
And Thanos is going to sort of be a kind of neutral, nihilist kind of character. He joins the Infinity Watch, which is Adam Warlock's sort of outfit, taking care of the Infinity Gems and everything like that. And he's just he'll step in when really bad things happen, and he's friends with Adam Warlock. So that's kind of where he is for a while. And then Annihilation kind of puts him back into the spotlight again. He still if you read that story, you still get the sense where he doesn't really care about the outcome. He just wants to be entertained by it. So he's still not mega villain again. he dies in that. We'll talk a little bit more about it. Comes back. He comes back from the dead a whole bunch, and not just like, oh, I'm traveling through time, I'm Batman kind of dead, like full on dead. Hey, it happened to Captain America too. It's not just
that is true.
Yeah.
Oh, Cap.
Yeah. And after Annihilation, after he comes back, now he's back to like Thanos. I'm scared. He's gonna conquer stuff, and he's gonna do this 4 or 5 more major crossovers. They really want, because really the Avengers is
God
happening.
damn it, Thanos! Can you just stop?
Well, absolutely. But what's crazy is like because the Avengers movie happens, because he becomes just sort of more in people's consciousness. People want to see him more, and he ends up in a lot. The main one to talk about is probably the events of Infinity.
Yeah,
where Thanos, while there's this other crisis going on with what they call the Builders, these cosmic characters that are coming and trying to basically wipe out every sentient sort of organization. While that's happening in the background, Thanos takes the opportunity to start taking over planets, swearing everybody to fealty to him. He creates what we'll all know as the Black Order, which we saw as his sort of 5 generals, the Cull Obsidian.
Them.
They're very cool, right? Who's your favorite?
Why are you saying it like?
Because that's the name of one that you really like.
Supergiant.
It's
just like a little, like if I was to make a villain as I was a kid, it's like he's real big, so he's Supergiant.
Well, Supergiant wasn't a big guy. Supergiant is the weird telepath girl.
No, I know. It doesn't make, nothing of it makes sense.
Yeah. And also, I'm pretty sure it's a ska band from the 90s. I could be wrong. But so he sort of it creates this sort of big thing, conquering worlds, and every world that he goes to, he tells them, you have to cut off the head of every male from 16 to 22 and give it to me as an offering. I'm Thanos. It's really fucked up, but he has a good reason, not one not one you'll agree with. So,
poor sympathetic Thanos has a good reason for asking for these men's heads.
It's like whenever Moses, they had to put the blood of the lamb over the door so that way the kid wouldn't get murdered.
Very much like that. And I think if anybody disagrees, it's like, you want to make it 15? I go 15 to 23 right now. I'll do that. I'm Thanos. But what it turns out is that Thanos has an ulterior motive. See, Thanos, because he thinks death wants this, and also it's just in his nature, he has been really knocking up broads across the galaxy.
My God.
Why not?
And he wants to make sure every one of his potential offspring is dead, because how dare he ever bring life into the world.
So why did he do it in the first place?
Yeah, well, he's an idiot. No, I don't. Well,
he's like, oh wait, that night, shit.
In a certain psychology, I mean, like Thanos and Lady Death, for that matter, they're not really anti-life in a weird way. They understand that life and death are sort of like one and the same, and they're very important. That's also why he doesn't necessarily see himself as a bad guy. Nobody can really argue death shouldn't be. And there's the Thanos imperative later on. It's going to explore just that, where there's a universe called the Cancerverse, which is where there is no death and life has completely taken over and they're nothing but villains, and Thanos is going to be an important part of stopping life. So it does get like pretty interesting. But so you can see why
Thanos into it, and he's the cancer of the cancer.
Yes, absolutely. But you could see why reproducing, what you could argue, okay, maybe he can have kids because they're going to die eventually anyway, right? But for whatever reason, and go back and read those stories particularly to find out, they may give it some more specific answer. Either way, he wants all his kids dead. Thane happens to be one of those kids, and he's being raised by the Inhumans. Mm-hmm. And the humans just happen to be connected to Earth, so that brings Thanos to Earth. He has a huge, confrontation with Earth heroes again. And there's been there's some more recent Thanos stories as well that have been really interesting. They've gotten Infinity Wars came out, and Thanos is central to that in a very surprising way. He had his own quest where he thought he was dying for a while. But that's kind of where
we're very all-star Superman like.
Yeah, and that's a good point, because Thanos' series that Donny Cates did, which is great, is very much like an all-star Superman of Thanos.
Yeah. Let me do the things that I want to do before I'm apparently dying.
Exactly. Yeah, it's pretty interesting. And so that's kind of Thanos now. Yeah, that's his brief history. There's a lot I left out, obviously, but that's
of course. I mean, how many Infinity comics did you just name?
And that only breaks the crust of the Infinity Story.
That's like in the span of like 10 years. It's insane.
But I guess, I mean, the point is he's kind of evolved from being a more
dark side.
Yeah, just a kind of hand-wringy, I will destroy with the cosmic anvil and the infinity hammer, I will smash worlds or whatever. And
worlds.
To being a far more interesting third party. And he's never been a good guy, but he's been kind of like a spoiler for sure.
Yeah.
So I should say, before we move on, before we leave Thanos, I think it's easy to think of him as this just like monolithic sort of character on top of a mountain of dead corpses and stuff like that.
So to say.
That's exactly what I picture.
Well, yeah, and he does too when he closes his eyes. But and every it's him versus the whole world. But he actually does have a few characters that are kind of specific to him and that he has relationships with. I think we should probably talk about that a little bit.
So Gamora, I love her so much, and in the comics, she does play a big part, just like how they interpret it in the movie. Mm-hmm. So she's the sole surviving member of Zen-Huberi, which
that's an amazing word.
Yeah, it sounds so like British.
That was the name of the little society that Horton found inside the thing, right?
The Who's?
Oh, I was like, who? What character is that? But yeah, Gamora, she was saved as a child by Thanos. She is a sole surviving member of that, and then Thanos has augmented her, changed her, put implants in her just like he did himself. He's trained her. She's highly skilled, feared galactic assassin. She even has a title of the deadliest woman in the universe, which I think is amazing.
Because of Thanos.
Yeah, because, she got taught by the biggest bad in the universe. So that always creates an interesting dynamic between the two, because he's all she knows as a father figure. But it's like, that's not the best example of a father.
You don't say.
Especially with her moral compass. So even though getting trained and raised by that, and it's really confusing for her because he still like celebrates Christmas with her, which
he tries to be the doting dad sometimes.
It's weird.
He loves her dearly because he's only killed her once as far as I know.
Yeah, that is a good point. Once is just so he could say he did it.
Yeah.
But there's an interesting thing I wanted to point out, and it just goes back to like how women have progressed in comics. So even though Gamora was learning and becoming the master martial artist, while still a young girl, Thanos took her onto like this mission or whatever, and he told her to stay behind. Well, he did whatever he did, like kids stay in the car type thing. But she's a kid and she was curious, so she kind of went planetside and was exploring. And she was ambushed by a group of thugs. The attackers used their numbers against her, even though she's really powerful and a great martial artist or whatever. She was overcome, she was defeated, and she was raped by them. And it's like, oh
my God.
It gets a little tiring, like reading like histories of women characters, and it's like almost every single one in the beginning has something like this. And it's like, why? How come Thanos couldn't get raped?
Yeah,
that's a good point. It's ridiculous.
That might teach him,
Oh my God,
it might make him worse.
Yeah, probably.
But even with that, in the end, Gamora does end up joining the Guardians of the Galaxy because she wants to be better. All of the stuff that happened to her and her father, quote, did not destroy who she is and to become a good person. And then also just to say,
kind of a good person.
Yeah, kind of a good person. She's had her moment.
She tries.
Yeah, but look at her
That's
upbringing.
a moral victory too. To just get to like, you're not an awful monster.
You're not the worst.
Yeah.
But I think I've always liked that she's been in Guardians of the Galaxy because all of them are like that in a weird way. They all are kind of damaged. It's a bunch of misfits, and they're not like the ideal
you have
superhero.
A type.
Yeah, I guess I do.
That's a weird tour, by the way, Guardians. Like, this is Rocket. He likes to shoot people. That's Drax. He stabs him. Gamora, really both.
Yeah, at the same time, too. Yeah. But she was created by Jim Starlin as well. First appeared in Strange Tales number 108. That's the editorial part that I don't usually like to talk about. But her powers are just like any other superhero out there. She has healing. She's super smart. She's a marksman. Stamina. She can heal. Super speed.
Wow.
Super strength. She can't fly, so I guess that just differentiate.
She has all of this, but
Yeah, and I did want to point out that it is interesting that her comic origin is a lot like how Nebula is in the movies, as far as like augmenting her and changing her, like, I don't know, cybernetic stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I like how they still kept some of that origin, but gave it to Nebula to, I guess, make her more interesting in this movie.
That's the Thanos way of improving stuff and doing science. Like, I'll turn you into a murderer.
Murderer machine.
You are the improved version of yourself now.
Yeah, and so, I mean, the rest is really history. I mean, she's gotten the gems before. She's been kind of a bad. She's been mostly good with her history. I guess she's trying to, make up for all of her past mistakes. And I do think it's funny that when she did join Guardians of the Galaxy, they all were kind of like wary of her just because of who she comes from, which they did do in the movies.
Yeah.
So I thought that was really, like, I think Thor was just like, he's your father? Not really.
Who's your brother? And your sister.
Yeah.
So if people are wondering, by the way, how good were those enhancements, it was enough that in Infinity War, the comic book, she kicked the crap out of She-Hulk and Rogue at the same time. It's a really cool panel. Just Google search it.
Which is funny because she looks like a mix between the two.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's Gamora. She's definitely, needed to be talked about.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Drax too.
That is true.
Because all of his stories are intrinsically tied to Thanos. So I have to kind of break it down in terms of old Drax and new Drax.
That is true.
Because old Drax was created by a human, Arthur Douglas, and Arthur's family was killed by Thanos, and he wanted revenge. So he was kind of like, I need a champion to fight Thanos because I'm just a human person.
Yeah.
So the being known as Kronos took Arthur's spirit and placed it into a new body. Drax the Destroyer was born.
So not an alien like the movie.
Yeah.
Drax is an alien in this case.
Yeah, exactly. Drax's powers at the time, old Drax, included enhanced strength and resilience, flight, the ability to project energy blasts from his hands. The character is often seen battling Thanos in terms of trying to get revenge. And on occasions, fights alongside like Captain Marvel and Adam Warlock. He's also a member of the Infinity Watch. So not the Guardians of the Galaxy yet. And then so new Drax, which is similar to the one we see on screen, started in 2004. The character obviously lost his ability to fly and his like power blasts,
which I think is a good thing,
and also lost a portion of his strength and resilience. So they just kind of like nerfed the hell out of Drax.
Yeah, they really did. They made him cooler.
Yeah.
But part of that was actually making him... He used to be, like when he was in the Infinity Watch, he was a giant, mentally challenged guy who was as strong as the Hulk.
Yeah.
And could fly around and blast people. There's a great Silver Surfer comic where he thinks Silver Surfer knows where Thanos is. So he's just... Silver Surfer throws him into a star, and he can't get rid of him. He's holding onto his board and everything. It's really, really great, really fun. But I'm glad that they changed him too.
Yeah. I mean, in New Drax, his highlights were kind of in the Annihilation comic, and then he joined the Guardians of the Galaxy. So similar to the one we see on screen now, but obviously, like you had pointed out, his it's kind of the one we see in the movies now is kind of like a combo of New Drax plus the origin story of old Arthur Douglas.
That is true. I never, because I guess I didn't put together, because in the movie he's mad because his family died, and it's like
Thanos killed his fammy.
In the movie, it's still the same way.
Yes.
Yeah,
or in the comic, it's still the same way.
Yeah, except he's not a human. I'm Arthur Douglas in his body.
I always thought like original Drax looked really funny compared to like now.
To me, it's just funny when Kronos brings him back from the dead, like this first time, and he's this huge hulking character, and it's like, I think that he's maybe got the IQ of a 6-year-old. It's like, well, nobody's perfect, okay?
The body is super hot.
Yeah. He can punch stuff, guys. Yeah. Okay.
All right, so the last one.
Adam Warlock, which I think if you guys, we still haven't seen him in the MCU, which kind of kills me.
It was heavily like foreshadowing that he's coming, but it
was in the second Guardians movie, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So the way, Adam Warlock basically is created by human scientists to be the perfect human genetic actualization of DNA potential
As
and
they
other
do. Yeah.
science words.
All of these genetics
Yeah.
stuff.
Stop dabbling with that.
And
guy.
he's sort of, there've been interpretations of the character. He's gotten help from, been boosted by high evolutionary, and he's had, we'll talk about him later. He's been a holder of the Infinity Stones and stuff like that. But Adam ends up being this character who he's very stoic and has to foil the plots of characters like Thanos. He's kind of one of those, like, he's got cosmic power and somewhere in the Drax department in terms of power, but it's really more about the fact that he's kind of always got a better plan. If you've read it, he's instrumental to Infinity Gauntlet. But the reason I'm bringing him up is that he's the closest thing that Thanos seems to have ever had as a buddy.
Yeah, which is always
strange.
funny.
They've fought against one another several times. That he was instrumental in foiling Thanos' plot. But after Infinity Gauntlet, the conclusion of that is that Adam gets the gauntlet and has to redistribute the gems. We'll talk about it more later. But one of those he gives to Thanos because he believes that Thanos is after having learned that he's his own worst enemy and will sabotage himself. Adam's like, well,
what's
he's
the worst
learned,
you can do?
Yeah, he's like, he's learned his lesson. He knows he's not, and in the meantime,
Does he though?
Well, it's a good question. It turns out he was wrong about that. But that, according to that story, he was, he also knew more about the gems than anything else. But anyway, their relationship is interesting because they both have a unique sense about how the universe works. And they both encourage each other to keep, weirdly enough, like, don't give up.
I always
it's
I always
a weird
attribute them, not completely, but it's like Thanos, Darkseid, Adam Warlock, Metron type thing.
Yeah,
I always feel like it's very similar in that
I think
aspect.
there's some, I think...
just in case people know one or the other.
I think Adam's sadder in
For
a way.
sure.
And Metron's a little bit more happy. I think Adam's... Yeah, because Adam's died so many times, and he's not just the Thanos sort of runs, but he's always sacrificing himself. And then he goes to Soul World, and he's happy there, and then they brings him back, and it's like the goddamn snooze alarm. He's like, what do I gotta save another...
Again?
I've been blasted into oblivion, like, a lot. I don't want to do this anymore. But after Infinity Gauntlet, Adam and Thanos forged this relationship, and Thanos being kind of a good guy who steps in and, like, corrects bad shit. It was really kind of the product of his relationship with Adam, and that went on for really like 10 to 15 years. So yeah. Go Adam Warlock.
I'm excited to see if he ever gets introduced.
He's one of the coolest characters, I think, that has had no exposure outside of the comics.
Yeah, I think so
And
too.
visually too. I've always liked the way
I
he
really
looked.
like Adam Warlock.
Just the words. So Adam, because he's the first man, he's made to be perfect by these scientists or whatever.
He
and
was
then
named
Warlock,
by a bunch of teenagers.
yeah, exactly, yeah. And then Warlock, because he's got this weird, like, oh, and a lot of times they interpret his power as like a cosmic form of witchcraft. Like he does, what do you call it? Like
Warlock,
quantum
get
spells.
it?
Well, he looks.
Yeah, that's
he
it, yeah.
looks like a wizard type.
Yeah, very
thing.
much.
Like he's cape.
I think that's right. I mean, he and Doctor Strange is the first person that he goes to see when they're raising an army to fight Thanos.
Yeah.
It's like, I know. Where's your wizards? Look how I'm dressed. Clearly, I'm wizard-like. I'm a space wizard. You guys probably don't
It's like,
understand.
oh, you got the. Yep, you're part of it.
Yeah.
But just reading about his name is so funny because after he was created by the humans, they just called him him, and then so
Called him
that's
him.
just all
That's right.
he was for a while was
Yeah.
him, and then the High Evolutionary named him Warlock, and then he went back to Earth, and these 4 teenagers that were like, "You're our friend now. What's your name? We're just gonna name you Adam."
One of it is funny because like one of his first fights, he's basically all, if you don't know, a kind of dark gold with blonde hair. And his first fight, he has just like a bikini on, and he's like muscular, and he's got that like I don't know,
Feathered,
mop top.
yeah.
No, it's like a Beatles but blonde haircut. And he fights Thor. That's one of his first interactions, and it's like Thor fought Rocky from Rocky Horror Picture
Yeah,
Show.
exactly.
That's what it looks like. Yeah.
Like I said, I like
Classic.
every interpretation.
He got
of
cooler,
his costume.
but yeah, no, absolutely, yeah. So check out Adam Warlock, and really all 3 of those characters are really cool. That knowing them and their relationship with Thanos really does help you understand what Thanos is.
Yeah, and this is such a weird deep dive that these characters have such rich history on their own. Thanos doesn't really have ties to anybody, so it's just characters that are important to his story.
Yeah.
All right, so we're getting to the history of the gems themselves because they're worth it. Kayla.
Yes. Okay, so I love this part. No, yeah, like the original, because there's a lot of like mystery surrounding the origins of the gems. But the most commonly accepted origin story was once upon a time, there was this giant ancient being who committed suicide out of loneliness.
Dark.
Yeah. The power of that creature survived and became and manifested into 6 gems, which became the Infinity Stones.
Nice. Yeah, that's a great
That
line.
sounds just like old fairy tales. Like they were all dark and like
Yeah, this gigantic cosmic force was just like, I'm lonely.
In Thanos Quest, when Jim Starlin's describing that, he's like, if you were to call this being God, you would not be wrong. It's like, I think that's a very long way of saying he's God, but
Yeah.
okay.
just more words.
But yeah, so we're going to get into each gem, but I do want to say, like, so that's the kind of cosmic origin of the gems that Kayla just said. In the stories themselves, originally the gems pop out, and they're just all called soul gems.
Yeah.
They really, it's not really thought out past that. They're just a bunch of, we don't even know if there's only 6.
Yeah.
But it's just a bunch of very powerful gems that can be used to destroy stuff. They just, the houses of great cosmic
They like
energy.
enhance powers.
Yeah,
so.
they're mysterious.
It's
Like,
Thanos that later discovers not only are there these 6 and discovers that origin that they were basically the supreme being that killed themselves, but that there were 6 of them and they each had specific powers that they sort of were principles of or responsible for.
Yeah.
mm-hmm. Oh. I thought you were still going. So to talk about the differences in the movie, in case people don't know, they're different in the comics, even with the color and what they're called.
Yeah.
So the time gem is technically the Eye of Agamotto in the movie. In the comics, it's orange. Now it's green.
Yeah.
Why? Who knows?
All of them shuffle colors
Yeah,
for some reason.
all of them.
Well, we don't know why they were different colors in the movie to begin with, but that they've changed them because of the movie in the comics.
No.
Like
yeah.
that's what happened. Like
Yeah.
they, you know what I mean? They were like, well, we can't have them different colors, so we'll just
we have to
now-
copy the movie now.
Yeah,
Yes.
they're probably like, oh, the fucking director. God
Yeah,
damn it."
exactly.
So the Tesseract, which is the space gem, was purple in the comics. Now it's blue. The ether is reality. I don't know why they called it the that is the one that pisses me off the most because it's just so different in every way. I mean, it's some smoky thing. I don't fucking know. Who knows? It was yellow in the comics. Now it's red. The orb, they don't technically give it a name, but the power gem is inside of an orb. It's red in the comics, but it's purple in the movies. The soul gem of Vormir, which is green and now orange. And then the Loki scepter, Mind, which was blue and is now yellow.
Yeah, I do. I like how, like, in the comics, they're all like little jelly bean size,
Yeah.
like jewels, and they're all perfect, and they fit in the glove. But in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, it's like one's in a hammer, and the other one is part of a shed. It's like a brick in a shed. Like they're just objects or whatever.
One's in this guy's forehead.
Yeah, exactly. One's the blood supply of a dragon, and you got
Yeah, so that's just to put the differences out there in case somebody picks up the book and they're like, well, I thought this one was this color. Like, it's just as confusing for us when we first saw it.
I like a lot of the changes, though. I do have to say.
Yeah.
I think some of them resemble the typical color you might think of that being, but who knows? I don't care.
I just like I mentioned this before, there's a change in the comics with the power gem that like they're usually small or whatever, and then it became like the size of a mountain.
How do you wield that?
Yeah. That way, yeah, exactly. And the gems, it's funny too, because like a lot of times it's not really clear how to use them. They're so weird and mysterious.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just picture the person that is trying to use that gem, the mountain one, and it's just always playing a game of King of the Hill.
Yeah, exactly. Which makes a lot of sense. As a matter of fact, that might even be in the comic.
Oh, shit.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think that dynamic is happening because a bunch of people are fighting over it.
Way to be predictable.
But it's, how it is with those, like with secret, powerful super weapons. It's always like, how do you use it? Well, you got to concentrate and be a good person, and then it will become usable.
So we'll get into the actual gems.
Yeah, we're just going to talk about them each a little bit, give you a taste of what they are, because they are different.
Yeah, kind of fun wielders. Their kind of trajectory in some of the plot lines. It's a lot to take on.
Yes.
Oh, it's soul, mind, time, space, power, and reality. Bam.
You just wanted to show off.
Yeah, I definitely couldn't do that.
Yeah.
There's time. No, but we're starting with the soul gem. Oh God, the history of the soul gem. Luckily for me, though, the soul gem is almost always tied somehow to Adam Warlock, or he ends up wielding it for the majority of the time, or at the beginning and the end.
Yeah.
But yeah, the soul gem came. Its first appearance was in Marvel Premiere #1, 1972. So one of the first gems to just actually appear and be talked about. Again, it was originally possessed by Adam Warlock, but the soul gem had this weird problem. Whenever he would try to use it for good things, it would sometimes accidentally devour the souls of people.
Yeah.
And he couldn't figure out why.
Was it named the Soul Gem at the time?
I think all of them were like the soul gem.
So he didn't know why the thing called the Soul Gem.
Check our history on this, but I think the soul gem might actually outdate the other gems in terms of like, it's like there was just one soul gem, and then later on,
the other
one.
ones.
There's a bunch of them,
Yeah.
and then we get the infinite gems
The
later
different
on.
ones. But yeah, and then like Thanos took it from him. They went back and forth, and that's kind of like its first iteration. The Infinity Wars is when it changed its color to orange. And it was found on Ego, the living planet. Don't know why.
He's come up way too much in this episode.
Yeah.
And in general, in comics. But it was took by Magus, and then Ultron killed him and took it. And then Adam Warlock cut off Ultron's hand and took it. And then when Stephen Strange tried to summon the Infinity Watch, Gamora cut off Adam Warlock's head and took it from him.
Yeah.
There's a lot of cutting involved with it.
Recently, Gamora kind of lost her shit.
Oh, yeah.
And so that's true.
It was really messy. Cool. And again, like you had said, when you talked about how often Adam died, I was like, oh, God.
Yeah.
And in the worst ways. But one of the cool things about the soul gem, I probably should have mentioned up top, is that, I kind of mentioned it can steal souls, communicate with souls. Also, like Jared, I think touched on this, it has like the soul worlds where they go after they're like absorbed or die. So a lot of the characters that are killed with people wielding the soul gem, or just in the Infinity storylines in general, end up in the soul world, communicating with each other and trying to escape. They don't really think that through. I mean, if you're going to kill your enemies, they're all going to be stored in the thing that you're carrying around.
Which I'm curious if they know, just in the movie aspect, because it's like...
I mean, we know Gamora's there. We've seen her. I wonder who else is. Yeah, exactly. I'm super curious to see.
Come back.
Yeah. But basically, that's kind of the history of the gems in general. Are passed along a lot of people. And I didn't count people that like touch it for a time and then it's instantly taken away. But at the end, when Adam has all of the gems, he's like, wait, these are sentient beings. And I should let them choose like where they want to go, who they want to be with. So he's like, oh, I free you, gems, be free. But he's like, the soul gem and me, we have a bond. They're not good. And then the soul gem leaves him too. And he's just like,
it's like, deuces, I just wanted your car.
All right. Bye, soul gem.
Poor guy.
I know. And then, like, so in terms of, like, favorite wielders, I think Adam Warlock makes the most sense because I like the bond he kind of has with the soul gem. And I like his character.
In this case, he looks like that. He usually has a green dot on his head. It's almost part of his look.
This was an easy one to choose my favorite wielder. Strangest was Ego. I don't like that guy.
Anything with him is the strangest.
Yeah. And I think, like, Ultron made sense in a weird way, even though he's synthetic, but I was just, no.
And also, the soul gem was just on Ego. So it's like, I willed the gem, and also I willed these people that are on here. I willed the Guardians of the Galaxy.
I wonder if he's ever like, get it? Somebody get it off. Like,
I don't want it.
Half of Ego's stories are that. By the way, or just him not wanting people on him that are around. I get it. I'm going to do, I think that, so the soul gem's like the first one. I think the most popular gem is the power gem. It's probably just because of the easy application of it.
It's powerful.
Yeah. In a sense, like so the power gem in terms of the Infinity Gauntlet powers all the other gems. It's what if you have it pushes all the other gems' abilities to the ultramax,
full potential.
Yeah, on its own, it ends up giving people control of just about any form of energy, absorbing, directing, stealing, and stuff like that. And usually, because of how the comics get written, they just give it to a real strong dude.
Yeah,
and he just uses it to be nigh invincible.
Yeah.
And I'm good. So there's been a bunch of wielders. It was maybe the prototypical one is this character Champion, is one of the elders of the universe that just likes punching stuff. That's
Nice.
his whole thing. He just
With
likes
the power
to fight.
gem.
Exactly. And it turns out, and this is he's one of the first characters too to have it and show that usually gems wielders, if they're not cosmically brilliant or powerful, they'll still use it, but they're more tapping into it at an unconscious level. So he thought it was useless, but he thought he was so strong because he's just, I guess, real muscly or whatever. But it turns out he was tapping into the gem or whatever. Who is my favorite wielder? I was going to say
Captain Marvel.
No, I think probably going to be, I don't know, Thor.
Oh,
yeah.
I see.
So when Thor went crazy
Boo.
during Blood and Thunder, he fought the Infinity Watch, but Thor goes into the state called the Warrior's Madness. He gets like 10 times
Berserker
more
stage.
for sure. And he fought Drax, the Destroyer. He punches him in the stomach. Drax had been holding the power gem in his gut. He just ate it because he thought it was a jelly bean. So Thor punches him, and it comes out, and then Thor, in a state of madness, also has the power gem.
Like,
So
does he throw it up or like take it? Oh, okay.
Oh, I
You
know.
said it just comes up.
I just kind of pictured him impaling him with his fist,
No,
yanking out
I was
the
like,
stone.
don't sugarcoat it because it's your favorite character.
No, in this case, he punches him in the gut, and he spits it out.
How cute.
But yeah, so that's basically how the power gem works. It's like it's usually red, and it just gives people blasty powers and lets them, be stronger than
Makes them
everybody
become
else.
powerhouses.
I was going to say, I forgot to mention that one of my favorite aspects of the Infinity Gems is how each gem has a different one that they augment. Like, I know the Power Gem enhances all of them.
Yeah.
But like with the Soul Gem, if the user has the Reality Stone, it makes the Soul Gem more powerful. And each gem has one of those. And it's not always the same one.
This was a new addition, and we still haven't seen it really used yet.
Yeah.
I really want to see that. Like, we got a diagram in Infinity Wars.
Yeah.
But we haven't seen I've got the Soul Gem, but I also have the Time Gem, and that
So, haha!
allows me
I
to...
mean, we don't know what's going to happen in the movie.
That's true.
That's true.
That'd be super fun.
Yeah.
Okay.
The next one, Space Gem. This one, I mean, teleportation, wormholes.
That's what you usually get.
Yeah, I mean that's dimensional portals.
That's super cool. I wouldn't scoff at that power.
No, I mean it definitely helped Thanos in the movie.
Yep.
Yeah.
A lot. So
Yeah, in the movie, he uses that maybe more than any other gem.
he really does.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, some of the other ones are cooler to look at,
Yeah.
but he definitely teleports a lot.
Yeah.
And also he'll just be like, "Oh, is that a blender? Give me that blender," or whatever. He's just anything he's got to move around.
The gem also potentially allows the users to alter dimensions of physical objects.
Mm-hmm.
So making maybe that power stone into a mountain.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's really unclear a lot of times, but the potential of these gems, I think it depends on the writer
For sure.
or the story that they want to tell, as things usually do. So that's pretty much it. I mean, one of the funniest users I think that has it is the runner. So he's super fast. And
a speedster.
Yeah.
Surprise, surprise.
I only like it because he moves fast already, and with the space gem, he's teleporting. But
That's crazy.
But he thinks that he's running that fast, so it's just like, well, I guess you thought you were moving that fast. And it's just funny that he's like, I'm still using my power, and this thing is useless.
He's really powerful, but doesn't know what words mean. Because he's like, it gave me the power to run at the speed of thought. It's like, you mean teleporting? That is, I guess,
was so
true.
Funny. Another person that has had it is Pip the Troll.
Pip.
He's so fun.
It's just ridiculous. And then Black Bolt, which I love that character so much. He's had it. I think that'd be an interesting choice.
Black
To
Bolt.
continuously have it. One that would be terrifying that has had this space gem is Wolverine.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
Imagine this
Nice.
him in his berserker state teleporting. Yeah. So that's
That's kind of what Pip would do. He'd teleport and hit people with a big mace. It's like his thing.
Black Widow's also had it. Great for an assassin.
Yeah.
The Hulk,
Yeah.
for some weird reason, has had it. It's like, oh, power? No, I want space.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's the space gem.
This is probably a good place to say too. You said Black Bolt had it. He did, and he didn't. He was just sort of holding on to it, and hiding it. And that I also feel like that's happened a lot, where it's like the gems have really. It's been like wasted opportunity after wasted opportunity. Where the characters didn't use it.
Yeah, that's why the one that I picked that was like my favorite to use it was one that was using it and didn't necessarily acknowledge that he was using it.
And so, it shows the incredible power of that gem, by the way, because Runner nearly kills Thanos. In the story, if he hadn't stopped to brag, he would have like ripped Thanos asunder with his super speed.
Yep.
So it turns out Noah's favorite moment was the one where it shows how speed beats everything.
Yeah, well, you did say he was like, he's just as fast or not faster than the Flash, and I was like, I'm not saying that. He is not, because he's cheating.
Yeah, that's a good point.
All right, next.
Yes. So my second one was the Mind Gem. Kind of a brief overview of the powers that it can bestow upon the wielder. Psionic powers, so like telepathy and telekinesis. This one is enhanced by the Soul Stone, because also a wielder of the Mind Stone is enhanced by the strength of the person's soul, which becomes important later when one of my favorite wielders, it kind of reminds me of they didn't really use it to its full potential, but when Miss Marvel, it's determined that her soul is incorruptible, she's given the Mind Gem. But basically during the Infinity Wars, which is super fun, monks try to deliver it to Doctor Strange for safekeeping, and then they are attacked by Skrulls, and Turk ends up with it for a long time.
Yeah.
And so he kind of tries to build, and like Turk's that low level, like random street thug. He tries to build an empire and it works for a while. And then Stephen Strange comes up to him and he's like, maybe you should give that to me. Maybe you shouldn't have this. And then Turk's like, maybe you're right. But then he uses the stone to convince like bystanders to try to commit suicide. So then Doctor Strange is distracted. And then Turk vanishes with it. And he's like, you know what? Maybe that's what's meant to happen. So then he gives up trying to take it back from Turk for a while.
Yeah.
Even though he just made this entire village like commit mass suicide.
Yeah. Dr. Fate. No, Doctor Strange is like, maybe it's fate that he's meant to have it. So he just leaves it alone for a while.
They're like honestly trying to tell Turk, there's like, you understand people are going to come for this, and like they're like people like Thanos or Warbringer or all these characters.
People that will just kill you without trying to talk to you.
Yeah, you're way over your head, basically.
Yep. But eventually he convinces Turk to give it back. So
yay.
Yeah, Doctor Strange has it for a very small amount of time, because then in the same place that she decapitates Adam Warlock for
You're so broken up about it.
Gamora takes it from Doctor Strange and ends up, of course, having all of them for a while.
Yeah.
She broke bad, like real hard.
Yeah. Favorite wielder of the Mind Gem? I tend to go with ones that make sense. Like, I think Vision was a good choice for the cinematic universe. It made sense that he had it. And then I think Xavier had it for a little while. Professor X makes sense.
That makes sense, yeah. I don't think he needs any more power. But...
I know. I know. It enhances telepathy. What?
What we haven't seen it do, I've always wondered, is that we haven't seen somebody really smart have it.
Yeah.
Like where their virtue is intelligence.
Yeah.
So hopefully that happens.
I think that's a good thing, though.
Yeah. I like to just see
cosmic
it, though.
power.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, that's basically the Mind Gem.
And the final gem, I believe. No, are we not close to the final?
Mine.
The penultimate gem. The penultimate gem. Is the reality gem, which is the least good gem because nobody knows what the hell it does.
Yeah, it's confusing.
It's not only is it confusing in the movies have already kind of contradicted themselves.
He uses the reality one and probably just teleports a lot.
But in the comics, it's not really clear what it does. I mean, it's even allowed to be mysterious.
Yeah.
And there's been some interpretations. Thanos uses it once and kind of like bends the room around and things like that. But it isn't really clear how any of the other aspects of gems wouldn't also be what the reality gem does. And then sometimes they describe the reality gem as having the power. It's like, isn't that just what the Infinity Gauntlet does together? I'm not really just makes wishes happen.
Yeah.
There's not really clear, but there've been some interesting sort of applications. One of the most recent ones is that the reality gem connects the user to the rest of the multiverse.
Mm-hmm.
So the way the Infinity Gauntlet works is it's our universe.
Yeah.
So, but the Reality Stone can allow you to get. They've even had things where through the Reality Stone, they've gone to other universes and gotten other Infinity Gauntlet, which only work in their respective universe.
That's
Anyway,
stepping on the space gem's toes.
well, the space is just in this universe,
Yeah.
right? The space of this universe. This is
Well, it
like
could teleport
connecting.
you to other dimensions. That's the only reason why
Sure.
I'm saying like they use the reality one to go to other.
Yeah. But so, and in the comic, or sorry, in the movies, they the ether was sort of like in its own way, kind of a cool idea, like the idea of like a thing that just blacks out all things, like an annihilation-y kind of
like
stuff.
a void.
Yeah, which could make sense in the idea of like potential versus actuality. Like if what's real is not what could be, but what is. There's a sense where it's okay. That's kind of cool that like this is you can use it to do the opposite. That works for me. And then, yeah, so it's not really clear.
Of course not.
and so it's hard to point to.
It just might be the ability of the person to access the power, because Thanos definitely did it with the collector and everything.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I would say in that case, he used it just to create almost like illusions, it seemed
Yeah,
like.
yeah.
Or,
He changed reality only in, I mean, it was illusions, but it was tangible and it was real.
Well, kind of
Yeah.
warps reality.
Yeah, and it seems like the way he uses it is proximity based. Or
Yeah.
at least
Like
that's
temporary
how.
effects.
Yeah, at least that's how they made it seem. And Malekith just made a tornado of red shit.
Yeah.
I'm glad, by the way, I'm glad you mentioned that, because we haven't really got into it that much. That a lot of people mention that when Thanos gets the gems, they're pretty nerfed. And I think there's some truth to that, in that, like, it's supposed to give you the ability to like change the universe itself, and he just uses it to like blow up moons and stuff. But I think some of that idea was that the gauntlet kind of allows you to control them, like channel power, but not like.
Yeah, it seemed like whenever he was using a specific thing, the gem would glow, and then it would do that. So I mean, I'm fine with it. He did do a lot more with it towards the end, but also he might not know how to tap into all of them.
Well,
I mean,
it's
not
like
clear.
when he does the snap, the gauntlet seems to break. So it's like if you use maybe too much power,
But
it
he has
fucks up the
reality gem,
interface,
so he could just make another one.
or make it so it didn't exist at all.
Yeah, I mean, it's all weird.
But anyway, so it's really hard to find like a favorite user. I'll say, weirdly enough, Thanos. Thanos is the only character in the comics I know that's used the Reality Stone effectively. Almost everybody else is like, I don't know what this damn thing does, or
It doesn't even know.
Yeah, exactly.
To be fair.
Yeah.
Last one, the time gem. My favorite one.
Why is it your favorite, Noah?
I'll get into it. But it, time grants the user ability to master time itself. Somebody that's not as experienced, or just the general like power it can give you, is seeing the past and future. So in the movies, you saw
Multiple scenarios.
Yeah, you saw Doctor Strange using that to his advantage to
he
an
did do that.
extreme degree.
Yeah.
So they can speed up time, slow it down. It's just
Reverse it.
Yeah, everything with time.
Make time loops.
I think
I think that's just a Missy Elliott.
I think in the movies, this one has been the most fleshed out as far as seeing what it can do.
Yeah.
Because,
So
I mean,
it
Doctor
definitely
Strange...
seems pretty broke.
Yeah, well, yeah, that too. But I think they've used that power, and it just knows what it does.
Yeah.
You can, like they did with the apple, it like went from eating itself to like going back to a full apple.
That's very true, because they've had very different user friendlynesses. You know what I mean? Like the Mind Gem's done nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Except been cool.
It's
on
not
his
clear
Vision's forehead.
even what it can do. Is like, was it powering him to give him a mind?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's just, you can put him in time loops. It's just master of all time. That's essentially what it is. My favorite user obviously is Doctor Strange.
Okay.
I think he's the most responsible person to use it, because he's had it, even in the movies and everything. He's had it this entire time.
Well, it's just like Adam Warlock and the Soul Gem.
Yeah,
It's like they belong together.
He's not abusing it. He's using it when he needs to. I mean, what he did to defeat the big bad in his movie, I think, was hilarious and amazing and really smart. Like, he just kept dying and redoing it in a perpetual loop, and it drove him mad. So I think that's
I've come to bargain.
Yeah, that's hilarious.
But the gardener is another person that had it. To me, he's like Highfather in DC. Even looks like him. Gamora has had it. Maxim has had it. Namor has had it, which I think is interesting.
Wasn't it a Black Bolt thing where he's just like kind of holding on to it?
Yeah. Super Skrull definitely does not need any of the gems. But yeah. So that's the time gem. Controls time. That's it.
The gems, everybody.
Yeah. All right. And as always, comic book recommendation time. Sorry, I don't know why I said it that way.
He actually said comic book recommendation time for those people who could not distinguish those words.
Mm-hmm. Thanks. So I'll start it off. I'll do the Thanos quest. It is when he's brought back by Lady Death and set out on a quest to get the gems to kill half the universe. So kind of Jared did explain that one. I love that one only because he comes in contact with where the gems are or who is currently wielding them. Mm-hmm. And he either has to outsmart them, punch them really hard, or just pick them up.
As he do.
It's really cool because you get to see kind of where this character is going to start going and his love for Lady Death. And yeah, I like that one. It's by Jim Starlin, and the person that did the art was Ron Lim.
To me, he's the perfect Thanos guy.
Like Ron Lim?
Yeah.
Oh,
Ron
okay.
Lim, Ron Lim to me is the artist that captures Thanos.
Yeah, I completely agree. Very good imagery on that entire comic. And then Keela.
Yeah, of course. So I'm going to choose the Infinity Crusade. It's the sequel to the Infinity Gauntlet and the Infinity War. Came out in 1993, written by Jim Starlin. It's the same creative team for each one of those. And it's basically the heroes of Earth take on Adam Warlock's good side because once he gets the Infinity Gauntlet, he kind of, to become the perfect logical being, he splits his self. And so there's a bad side and a good side.
Because why not?
Yeah. And of course, like Jared was mentioning, towards the end of Thanos' origins, he works with Adam Warlock. They have an interesting relationship. So that kind of explores that a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Good one.
My recommendation is it's just Thanos. It's just his, So check
if you want to know about Thanos,
check him out.
Read Thanos.
Yeah. It was a series that came out, I think, in 2017 by Jeff Lemire and Mike Deodato Jr. And Thanos is dying, and he's not into that. But,
even though he loves it.
But seriously, it's just such a solid story. I'm such a fan, and it's there's been so much Thanos origins and Thanos. This is sort of Thanos all grown up and just kind of being a badass. And I think for new generations, this is a more contemporary telling of him. Mm-hmm. And it really explained why, you got to respect him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Or snap.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks for listening. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter at the Fantom Zone Pod for more podcast updates.